Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi, and man, what a day. Long day. We thought we were going to get there, but we got really close. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to shout out everybody who's donated over the past week. So bear with me. Shannon, Ashley, Sassy Woman, Pam, Lori, not that Lori, y'all. Ellie, Jess, Shasta, Naomi, Teresa, Whitney from Greenville. What's up, neighbor? Kathy P, K Justice, Pippi Swims, Knoxville Agent, a dog named Boo, Ashley, Sherry, Mar, Wizard Puzzle, Mikhail, Gigi, Joanne, Vicky, Terry, Sheila, Jody, Rachel, Dawn, Elda, and Sandy. Thank you guys so much for supporting the podcast. It's how I'm able to do what I do. And I really do appreciate you guys. Music fact of the day before we jump in. The Pet Shop Boys are the most successful duo in UK music history. They sold more than 100 million records worldwide, and they have achieved 42 top 30 and 22 top 10 singles in the UK singles chart. West End Girls is my favorite by them by far. Great band. So we started the day off with 30 jurors, and we thought, okay, it's gone pretty quickly the last 2 days. It'll be really easy to get these last 12 in, and maybe we get to striking jurors and have openings tomorrow, but didn't happen, and we'll get there. So how did Lori seem today? She started the day off kind of laughing with her attorneys before everything got started. And she was writing on her legal pad before the jury even came in. I think she talked more today to her attorneys than I've seen in the last couple of days. She definitely was more animated. And one other thing, a sketch artist drew a photo of her dabbing her eyes and said this happened after it was brought up to a juror that they would be seeing graphic autopsy photos. I didn't see that myself, but I wasn't looking for it. I did see her wipe her eyes later. It's hard to tell if it's allergies or whatever. So it's really hard for us to see up close what she is doing with her facial expressions, because I explained yesterday, we have a pull down screen and it has 3 Zoom boxes with the prosecution, one showing the defense and one showing Judge Boyce. So we can see Lori and we can recognize it's her, but you can't see those up close facial expressions. And so I don't know if when I saw her do it later, it was very brief. It's hard to tell if it's allergies or she's crying because we can't see. I didn't see really any signs that she was super upset. So you never know with her. Of course, to me, she's acted very different during jury selection than she has during every other time we saw her before cameras were banned, because she seems more focused and she's definitely assisting in her defense. Remember, there was that issue of competency just a few months ago that was raised, really quick turnaround that she was competent. And I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that she's very actively engaged, writing notes. She'll nudge one of her lawyers to look at what she's written, or she'll kind of look over their shoulder as they're writing and it looks like give her input. If they were to take the other 2 boxes off and just have her on, it enlarges on that screen and takes up the whole screen. And that would be ideal. But I know there was the issue raised at the last time we had cameras in the courtroom where they complained that the cameras were just on her. But that's kind of what everybody wants to see, right? Right off the bat. So the first group that came up of 15, 8 of those were excused due to just the answers they gave on their questionnaire. It was really quick, and I was like, oh boy, this could be a long day. So Rob Wood explains that 2 of the victims are minor children, and the other victim is a mother of 5, meaning Tammy Daybell. He tells them that they will see autopsy photos of children and asks a woman, a prospective juror, how she would feel. And she said, as a mother, it would be incredibly difficult for her to view those photos. So he asked her if the emotion of seeing photos like that would outweigh her ability to be fair and impartial and to weigh all the evidence. And she says now that she knows it's minor kids that's part of this case and a mother of 5, she would have a lot of difficulty remaining unbiased. And She says she doesn't think she would be fair in evaluating all the evidence after seeing those graphic photos. Of course, she's removed. So there's some things that they say to every new group. One of those is they'll call on a couple of jurors and say, what is brutal honesty to you? Well, it's kind of the same answer with everybody. Just telling the truth and not worrying about how the other person feels, or you can imagine the responses. The other question they ask to every group is about circumstantial evidence. So they always give the example of, well, if you tell your kid they can't have a cookie and you see the cookie jars open and your kid's got crumbs on their face and chocolate on their mouth, would you assume they ate that cookie? Most people say yes. Some people say, well, I would have to see them eat it. We had one yesterday that said that. And then one guy today said, well, I would question the child first and then form my opinion, which was like the right answer. That's what they want to hear. The first juror that was questioned individually knew some things about the case. And before reporting to answer the questions on the questionnaire last week, she was aware of the charges against Lori and that she was accused of possibly murdering her children, but nothing more. This juror said she had never watched any episodes of like Dateline 2020. They ask about those repeatedly. Also, she doesn't watch TV in general. She said her only source of news is the Statesman newspaper. So Rob Wood comes up for the state, and the juror doesn't have TVs in her house, but she watches Netflix online, listens to Boise State Radio, NPR. She said she did not watch the Netflix special on Lori. And Rob Wood says in her questionnaire, she seems to know a fair amount about the case. And he asked the juror if what she knew caused her to form an opinion on the case. And she said she became aware of Lori and Chad when they were in Hawaii. And she said her question is, if my kid is missing, why are you going to Hawaii unless you know something? She said on her questionnaire, she had formed an opinion. And on the juror said on the flip side, I have no idea what happened. I stopped paying attention because it was so sensationalized. And she said, I hate that stuff. She said, I have no clue if she was part of it, but I think she knew something. And she said, because she went to Hawaii while our kids were missing. So to her, that meant she obviously was in on knowing where the kids were. Of course, both sides agree she's got to go and she's dismissed. And that's one thing that I've seen as a common theme with these jurors is the questioning starts off with, I don't know much about the case, but then on the questionnaire, it seems like they knew a lot more, or during the course of questioning, it comes out they knew way more than what they're saying originally. Now, I don't think people have nefarious intentions or are trying to beat the system, but you have to wonder too, it's okay to have heard about this case. It's not that. It's just, can you be fair and impartial? But I have noticed people that know details about the case are getting sent out for the most part. But it does seem weird that you start off and you think, wow, this juror really has been living on another planet, not even knowing anything about this case. And then you find sometimes as questioning goes on, they knew way more than what they're saying. So another juror said he had had some media exposure to the case, and before he reported for the questionnaire, he didn't know any of the formal charges against Lori. He hasn't watched any specials on the case, just local news when it was fresh. He said her actions were suspicious, but if the state fails to prove the crimes, he would render a not guilty verdict, and he wouldn't hesitate to do that if he felt the state didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt she's guilty. So John Thomas came up for the defense, and he said, you watch KTVB local news, and you knew the kids were found in Rexburg. And he asked what else he knew about the case. And the guy's like, well, Chad Daybell's involved, and he mentions Tammy Daybell. And when asked if he had formed an opinion on the questionnaire, he scratched out no, then checked yes, and said, I'd say her involvement is suspicious. He said the lack of having an answer of where your kids are is suspicious. So he's asked to elaborate on that, and he said he knew they were asking where the kids were when she was in Hawaii. And he said it's just weird. He said he has social media but doesn't really click on links. He said when he told his family and his employer that he may be on this case, and Mr. Thomas specifically asked the Lori Vallow case, the juror said there were assumptions and asked if that was the Lori Vallow case, and he didn't confirm or deny the people that did ask if in fact, this was the case he might be on. So Mr. Thomas obviously wants to excuse this juror because he says he's formed an opinion and found her involvement suspicious. Judge Boyce asked if he saw any footage of Lori or anything, and the juror said, I just remember seeing them walking. The state didn't want to strike this potential juror for cause, saying that in his questionnaire that news isn't evidence was one statement that they made. The state did not want to excuse this juror because in the questionnaire, he stated that news and things you see on the news isn't evidence. Judge Boyce ultimately overruled the defense and he stayed on. With another juror, John Thomas asked if he had ever heard of the name Alex Cox. And he said, no, that's the first time we've heard Alex's name brought up. I thought that was interesting. And you would think that would be something that they would ask pretty much every potential juror in individual questioning. Have you ever heard of Alex Cox? But this was the first time that I know, unless it happened when I stepped out for a minute or two, that his name has ever come up so far. So then we had another potential juror. And this poor woman, she tried her hardest to be fair and try to put herself past this. But Judge Boyce said on the questionnaire, the woman put she faints when she sees blood. And she says she closes her eyes if she's watching TV and there's something bloody on there. And also she noted she hasn't fainted since she was a kid, but she does get really nauseous if she sees any kind of blood. And so Mr. Thomas says some of the evidence in this case is gruesome and she doesn't have the option to close her eyes. Obviously, she was let go. So one juror was a veteran who had served in Germany, and Mr. Thomas got very excited. And he was like, I was born in Germany. And then the same potential juror had family members that were twins. And Mr. Thomas was like, I have family members that are twins. But during individual questioning, this same potential juror saw on the news that she was accused of murdering her kids. And he says he can't remember seeing anything else on the news about Lori, but his wife knew the case was transferred to Ada County and said it was possible that he could be sitting in on Lori's case. He said he could be fair and impartial and would consider the evidence. Judge Boyce wanted to ask some questions outside of the public, and Mr. Archibald asked when he watched the news. And this guy said, I watch in the evenings. His wife is retired, and he said he told his wife that he might potentially be a juror on this case. And then his wife talked to him about the case. He knew the bodies were found in the backyard in Rexburg. He knew more than he originally said for sure. This is just one of those where as you get deeper into questioning, it kind of comes out that they're not super oblivious. So Mr. Archibald, of course, moves to excuse him for bias. The state objected, but Judge Boyce said it sounded like frequent prior exposure to the case when this was part of the regular news cycle, so he was excused. Then there was an elderly woman, and you could tell with her voice that she was older, and Mr. Thomas reminded her that just due to the fact that she was the age she is, she could be exempt. And the woman said she's happy to serve and it wouldn't be a hardship. So I would love to see somebody older on this jury, somebody who's seen a lot of life. Individual questioning with a male juror. Before he came in last week, he did not know what charges were filed and said he had completely forgotten about this case altogether. He said he never watched any specials or documentaries, and the state asked if he knew Lori has the presumption of innocence and can only judge the evidence from either a witness or what evidence is presented. He said that Lori deserved a fair trial, and the state said you answered that she was suspicious. He said he could still be fair and objective, and the defense asked about answering what he knows about Lori. Dead spouse, dead kids, she's on the run. So he's asked, what do you mean about a dead spouse? And he said, my details are foggy, but I remember a spouse not being there and missing kids, and Lori was found in another place. And Mr. Thomas said he worries that there's things in his head that he may not remember right now, but if a witness gets on the stand or some evidence is introduced, then it could make him biased. He said he couldn't remember whose spouse was dead, but remembers the kids had passed away. And he believed that it was Lori's children, and he thought it was 2 or 3 kids. Now the juror says they were looking for the defendant also, and the kids were missing. And he thought he remembered someone saying they were found dead, and he didn't know that she ran off. Then the juror says, well, maybe she did to Hawaii. Mr. Thomas asked if publicity caused you to form an opinion. You said she's off in Hawaii. That doesn't look good. And if she's in Hawaii and her kids are missing, that's suspicious. He admits he's been biased by the media, but then he knows none of that's real and shouldn't take any of that into account. Then he says he had completely forgotten about the case. Mr. Thomas challenges the witness for cause, indicating he had a media bias. And when some evidence came in, he said he could form a new opinion. So the state said he acknowledges what he was told or saw isn't real evidence. Judge Boyce said ultimately he was troubled by the response on the questionnaire about a dead spouse and also prior exposure to facts and forming a new opinion as evidence is introduced. And the juror said he forgot about the case and he remembers it. And so Judge Boyce is like, yeah, you got to go. So what happened? By the end of the day, we needed 3. We were down to needing 3, and we were down to the last 3 jurors. What happens? The first one gets excused. Judge Boyce brings the other 2 in and excuses them both based on their answers on the questionnaire. So what's in store for tomorrow? Well, we just got an email. Court will not resume jury selection until 1:30. They have some things to take care of. Kind of wondering at this point, honestly, if it's not about Kay and Larry's situation, whether or not they get to sit in. It's getting close. I mean, I think we'll get the 3 very early tomorrow, or, well, we thought that after lunch. You never know. But then you got the 12 strikes each. That shouldn't take long at all. So I think that Judge Boyce has got to rule on this motion tomorrow, just so Kay and Larry can know the decision, and then they move forward however they see fit based on what he rules. Hopefully it's in their favor and they are seen as the victims that they are in this case. But as of right now, that is still up in the air. So I will be there early. I'm going to be on Law and Crime at 10 a.m. with Jesse Weber. We're going to do our normal chit chat about the case, and then be back on after a break and a few other little hits here and there. So keep your eye out. Also, I'm trying to get the links for the interview that I've done with Kay and Larry as they're aired. I'm trying to put those on social media. I'll also be uploading those tomorrow to the webpage for those of you that don't have the channel and don't have social media. So that's kind of it from Boise. And by the way, it warmed up today. And can I just say, Boise has a lot of one-way streets. Ask me how I know this, okay? I about died twice today. Yeah, people are nice, though. They gently honk. It's not like they lay on the horn. People in Boise remind me of Southerners. Very hospitable, super nice. Like, I'm already in love with this place, and I'm glad it's warmed up because I love it even more today. But that's it from Boise, Idaho. We'll keep you posted. I'm live tweeting the trial. If you don't have Twitter, you can go to prettyliesandalibis.org, where I have the Twitter feed there, and you can just scroll and keep up without having to sign up for Twitter. So I hope that helps those of you who want to keep up during the day but don't have Twitter or don't know how to use Twitter. It can be really confusing for people that are new to it. So anyways, all right, guys, and I'm hoping maybe this weekend to do a live with everybody. It's been a long time since I've done a live, and that way we can just sit and chew the fat about this week and what's transpired and see where we are. We're looking at 8 weeks. That's what they're telling everybody when they're being questioned about hardship. 8 weeks is what they're estimating. Hopefully it goes sooner, but a lot of times these things go over. Remember, Murdoch was supposed to be 3 weeks. We went 6. So anyways, I'm going to be here bringing you all the latest, at least until next Friday. Then I'm home for a week. Then I'll be back for a couple of weeks. That's how it's going to go. And I think when my kids are out of school, I'm going to fly them here so they can be with mama. All right, guys, we will see you soon. Have a good night.